they didn't let my list. They wouldn't let my list or my vocal inabilities hinder me from going with my dream. I
Okay.
wanted to be a DJ.
Right.
And when I got to broadcast school, the best thing happened to me was one, I learned broadcasting, but I also was under the tutelage of a brother by the name of Jay Rich. Jay Rich was one of the most articulate men in jazz radio.
Okay.
He was one of the teachers at the broadcast school. He took a liking to me,
Okay.
and he taught me how to articulate. And
Okay.
it wasn't I had any type of malfunction or anything. I just was lazy.
Okay.
I just was lazy. I just learned to be lazy. Just like sometimes people down south talk real lazy
No,
or
I got
whatever.
you. Right.
I wouldn't open my mouth. For whatever reason, I wouldn't open my mouth.
Okay.
And he taught me to open my mouth and articulate. Then after that, I did go to college for a little while to El Camino College, and I spent about 3 or 4 semesters in a speech class going the for 45 minutes every Tuesday and Thursday till I got it right.
Okay. So business life, being like, everybody that I've ever met from Compton, no matter where, if they're L7 or the gangster, one of the things I love about Compton cats is there's a certain swag or a certain hustler's ethos that y'all got, man. Talk to me a little bit about that in terms of what was like growing up in Compton and like what were some of your first business enterprises? Because one of the reasons why I wanted to have you come here is not only were you a pioneering producer, not only did you have the world-class wrecking crew and all of that other stuff that we get into, not only did you help, broker some of the early careers or some of the foundational meetings in all of hip-hop culture, but been running businesses and successful ones for the past, 40-some years, longer than I've been alive. So let's talk about that in terms of the early Compton. What were some of your early business enterprises like?
Look, where I lived at, by Vanguard Junior High School, I lived right down the street, so I had a lunch pass every day. I can go home for lunch. Most kids couldn't do that.
Okay.
So what I would do, I'd run home and eat and go to the grocery store across the street, buy candy, and sell it at school for double the price.
Oh, snap.
Okay. Then behind my house, I lived off of Main Street. There was a bunch of factories. One of those factories sold patches for Shell Oil, Mobil Oil, or whatever the case may be. We go dumpster diving. We my ass. I'd go dumpster diving
Right.
and come out with all the extras, whatever the case may be, taking them to school. This is the 70s now. The Levi jacket full of patches
Right, was
was
the
the thing to have.
Right.
So I'm slinging patches.
Which is
I'm
crazy
getting them
because
for
it's
free.
coming back, too. It's
Coming back.
too. Right.
I'm getting them for free. I'm dumpster diving. I clean them up, figure out the best ones, take them to school. I drop them for $3-4, whatever the case may be, and I made my money. I never sold dope though. I never sold dope. Castle selling joints and whatever, and they sell you a hit for a quarter. Okay, but my thing was I always had legitimate hustles.
Okay. So, talk to me a little bit about that, man. Why was that a situation? Was that, part of your upbringing? I know I've heard you talk about, and I think maybe the audience who've never heard that before, talk about, I guess that at one time, when you were DJing, your pops had thought you had, made that wrong turn or something.
Yeah, my neighborhood where I lived at, everybody sold dope. My mom had passed. I lived in her house, and my dad had the key. Came in the house one day, saw me with a pile of money, about $600. And we're talking about the 70s now, and $600 was pretty much what he made that month. And
Right.
to see me with it, oh, hell no, you must have went to the dark side. And he about to take me out. I'm like, hey, man, calm down. He saw what I told him what I was doing. And shortly after that, he turned me on to his friend that owned this nightclub called Jeffy's. They had just built the second floor on Jeffy's called Eve After Dark. And oddly enough, I had just got fired from my last job at Record Shack.
Okay.
And my old man told me, he says, I can get you in, but I can't keep you in. And I tell people all the time, relationships are everything. I made the connection with the old man. My old man cut the deal for me. I didn't know nothing about nothing. All I knew how to do was DJ and promote. They cut the deal for me, and I've been there for 40 years. I got the old man's office right now. So
That's powerful,
I'm a product of mentorship. That's why I believe. That's why I do what I do now. I'm a mentor. I have my own blog called Alonzo Presents GAME. grown ass man enlightenment. Because so many cats don't have nobody to talk to.
Right. Well, now, and I think that's definitely, man. One of my former pastors, Reverend Jeremiah White, always talks about, you can't be anything that you've never seen. And so that's why it's so powerful. One of the best compliments I think I've ever gotten as an educator is when students come up to me and they be like, Dr. Armstrong, if you got your PhD, I know I can get one. So this shit's kind of backhand. I don't know how to feel about that shit. But, I mean, I think it comes from a good place. So, man, you ended up buying a nightclub at the age of like 21, 22. So talk to me a little bit about how you got into in like your history in terms of nightclub, and how do you end up with basically being the outright owner manager of a nightclub at like 21, 22 years old?
You know what, dude? It was my dad, dude. My dad actually, he kind of co-signed the deal because the guy I got the club from was one of his boys. They was drinking buddies.
Okay.
And for the first year, maybe 2 years, they was kind of looking over my shoulder. Let me do my thing, but they kind of over my shoulder like, all right, he know what he doing. I don't know what he doing, but he doing something, right? He making money. He paying the rent. Ain't nobody dying in the joint. Okay, so it's the same thing I do to guys right now. Things have changed considerably over the years when it comes to promotion. This internet thing is a whole nother situation.
Right.
So I have guys on my team that I don't understand what they're doing sometimes, so I let them do what they do. And it's just a matter of trusting the generation, but you also got to guide them as well. You just can't throw them out there. And that's what I think saved me was they didn't throw me out there. When I would pay my rent at Eve After Dark, my rent was $600 a week. Sounds like a lot of money, but it wasn't nothing at that time because I was making much more than that. But the old man who I paid the rent to would not let me just give me his money and walk out the room. It came with a lecture every week. Came with a lecture. It came with a lecture that you couldn't get at no college. Okay, and that's the beautiful part of mentorship. Most of what you learn in mentorship, there's not a school you can go to learn these lessons, and a book you can read to learn these lessons.
Okay. So like, talk to me about that, man, because like one of the things that it sounds like to me, and we'll skip back and forth a little bit, because one of the things that I think is interesting to you, and then I want to get into the first time we met. I think it was really interesting. I was out grading some papers. Do you want to tell the story? But like
go ahead. Go ahead. We was out grading papers. We walked up. We was kicking it. Me and my boy.
Yeah.
And we just started having a conversation.
Yeah. And so we started. And I will never forget this, that you had a shirt on, and it was said NWA. And I remember first going on to you, and I think it was Unknown.
Right.
And Unknown, I was talking about, and he was like this, and I was like, yeah. And I started spitting off because I think we instantly connected on that. I was a hip hop head, and I was grading papers. It was night. I was smoking a cigar, taking no-dos, drinking coffee, all type of crazy shit. Grading some papers, and because I give long ass midterms. So Tony D, one of my former students up here, he'll tell you, boy, I'll work your ass off, boy.
Hey,
you know what I'm saying? Because like they be like, you know what, Dr. Armstrong, it's like a philosophy class. I was like, yes, as I'm a philosopher, that's how that shit kind of works. But I remember we went, and I'll never forget this. I saw you and Unknown had on T-shirts, NWA. And it wasn't the typical NWA T-shirt. It was Not Without Alonzo. Exactly. Let's talk about that, man. Not Without Alonzo. What does that mean? Let's get into it.
There wouldn't be no NWA without Alonzo Williams. That's the title of my book, NWA. It's the title of my upcoming documentary, NWA, Not Without Alonzo.
Where can I get it at, fam?
The book is available on Amazon and my website, AlonzoWilliams.com. It's an audio book as well as a paperback. Okay,
you say buy 2 copies in case they want to meet more than once.
Because people do it all the time.
So let's get into it. So I want to tell you this question, man, and let's get into it. Chop some things up. So I have a 14-year-old niece. Hey, Mama Chloe, that's my niece Chloe, honor student, getting all this different type of stuff, taking college classes, beastie. But about 2 years ago, we were on the couch and we were, talking, and a Coors Light commercial came on. And she said something, and I'm going somewhere, but just fill me on this. So Coors Light commercial comes on, and she asked me a question, dead serious, just like one of those things that, like at first I got kind of scared just because, 12-year girl, it's a lot of stuff that's going on out there today. And so she says, Uncle Melvin, I want to ask you something really serious. And I was like, what's up, baby? And she was like, I need to know something been bothering me. And I was like, what, baby? Is it something that's cool? She said, no. She's like, why is Ice Cube trying to be a rapper, Uncle Melvin? And I was like, what? I was like, what? She's like, yeah, I think Ice Cube is trying to be a rapper, Uncle Melvin. And I was like, baby, do you realize when Uncle Melvin was your age, Ice Cube wasn't like a rapper. Ice Cube was like the rapper. And she's like, really? I was like, yeah. And she was like, get out of here. And so it's crazy just about like, sometimes like history and stuff, man, just because, like for her generation, Ice Cube is the dude who was in movies and stuff. Are you there, right? Friday, Barbershop, all the different stuff. Like she don't know it's the nigga that you love to hate with a new song to what's really going on, right? Or those particular types of people. And so she has like no context to that. But one of the things that was really curious to me, man, in light of something that you just said, is you give mentorship now, but it occurs to me like when you met Cube, when you met Dre, when you met so many of these people who have gone on in there, like, these luminaries, that when you met them, like I know Cube, for instance, wasn't that much older than my niece. And so do you think your mentorship style, how has that changed since maybe you were mentored? Because like I think, how old were you when that happened? Like you were like 26, 27?
When I met Cube, I might have been about 27, 28.
Okay.
I met Dre. Dre came around the club a lot earlier. I met him about 24, 25.
Okay.
I'm 8 years older than Dre.
Right. And so you were like how much, like 14 years older than Cube?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But so like, does that mentorship style that you have today, is that because maybe you feel like that you didn't do it for them then, or what do you feel like some certain? Because that's interesting to me.
I
man.
did it. I understand this. People ask this similar question a lot of times. I did the same mentorship. I applied the same things to them that my people applied to me. Mm-hmm. It's just that they came in the generation right there at the cusp of when dope and gangbanging met.
Okay.
Peanut butter met the chocolate for the first time.
Okay.
That's how you got the Reese's Pieces.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
The peanut butter and the chocolate always been there.
Right. It's always been there.
It's always been peanut butter and chocolate.
But
and one day they bumped together.
And you like, this shit's amazing.
The rabbit fucked the Hershey bar. This is what you get.
And look what you get. Okay. So I see that.
When I came into the music game, it was all about being cool, doing your thing, having a good time, partying, partying for the girls. We in the 80s, okay?
Right.
Crack cocaine had not been invented yet.
Right.
Gangbanging had been around forever. We had gangbangers even after dark. But the ratio to gangbangers versus civilians, it was 10% gangbangers, 90% civilians.
Okay.
When money became a big issue in the 80s, after Reaganomics, money became the big issue and dope hits the streets. Everybody wanted to sell dope to make money, so they changed their persona to be gangsters. Then the whole paradigm shifted.
Right.
So now you got 90% gangsters and 10% civilians, but 90% of the gangsters ain't got no heart.
Okay.
So when I was coming up, guys had to fight to be in the game. You had quality gangbangers. Now all you do is a trigger finger.
Right, and I got you.
So the whole thing changed, and it just became a phenomenon that was like, what the hell happened?
So let me ask you this though, man. Like in terms of this, like because I've heard interviews with you and all this stuff, and I want to get it from the horse's mouth, so to speak, right now, because there are interviews when I hear you talk about, and I've heard you talk about before, about this issue of authenticity. And one of the things, I'm a person that I feel like that hip hop is one of the few genres of not just music, but just art, where that we judge some of the credence of the artistic production by if someone literally or figuratively did what they're talking about, right?
All right.
But I don't think anyone holds that same like, so for example, J.K. Rowling is a billionaire right now. No one's ever asked that chick, but like, hey, you know really anything about this wizard life or whatever. Or no one asks other artists about, or we don't vet other artists in the same way. And so talk to me a little bit about what's your stance on this issue of like authenticity or vetting artists. Like, does a person, because I'm a person to say, like, I don't believe necessarily that one has to have lived the particular thing that they rap about, if insofar, or that they do art forms about, if so far it's compelling.
Well, you know what?
Let's chop it up. What's your thoughts?
The one thing about hip hop, and it's always been one of the primary stepping stones of hip hop, is keeping it real.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
If you keeping it real, how you gonna lie about what you do?
Mm-hmm.
You can't do it. You can't have it both ways. And I did an interview one time with a young lady, and we were talking. That guy introduced me. He says, "Yeah, man, this the guy behind Cube, Dre." "Oh, you know Cube?" I said, "Yeah." She said, "That's my favorite gangster." I said, "Baby, what gang is he from?"
Mm-hmm.
She said, "There, he from."
Mm-hmm.
Now, when you look up and you got the most dangerous gangsters in the world, but you can't name one gang from nobody ever was from. I'm not mad at them. But the problem with that is you got cats that's really out there gang banging, that's living these cats' lyrics, okay, that think these stories that they're telling are based on true activities.
Well, no, but that's what I'm saying. So, like, so is it a situation like, for example, you know, Ice Cube's "Today is Good Day," right? And you know the ending stands of that. And today, I didn't even have to use my AK. I had to say it was a good day, right? So for you, how then do you judge then that issue of authenticity? Does it have to be first person in your stance, or can it be a reflection of, just like some people say, you know, rappers, or because rap is rhythmically adapted poetry, that's what it means, is just like, you know, the nigga news, so to speak, or that it's a reflection of that. So that is that keeping it real necessarily for you? Does it have to be your actual story, or can it be real because it's actually an accurate reflection? How do you?
Well, you know what? That's what a generational gap comes in at. For me, I ain't never told nobody shit I never done before.
Okay.
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 And I'm not gonna lie to you about having no big ass house. I got a big house, but it ain't that big.
Okay, I got you.
It's LA big, okay?
Right, I got you.
I got a Jag, but it's an old ass Jag, okay? So when I start bragging, or I start talking, I'm not bragging. I'm gonna tell you what happened. But I tell you what, when it comes down to it, when it comes to reality, when I tell I have a series I'm doing right now of all the stories we did back in the day, just the stuff we did. Surviving, you can't survive on Avalon El Segundo without doing some gangster shit. But the guys who I was mentored by said, do what you got to do, but don't tell nobody. That means you damn sure don't make a record about this shit, okay? You do what you do and pray for the statute of limitations to go away.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
You don't make a fucking record about this shit, and then you